Welcome to our show. I'm your host, Kimon Kotos, and joining me today is Steve Wisneski from the 4th Ward here in the city of Muskegon. And thank you, Commissioner.
Thank you for the invitation.
Tell us a little bit about your background. I understand you're from the city of Muskegon?
That's correct. Born and raised. My dad was a city employee for 38 years. I went through Nelson School and Muskegon High School. Graduated in '76. Went on to work in downtown Muskegon for a retailer for about 10 years. Then went back to college, finished up my college degree, and went to work as a human resource professional. And about 10 years ago, started my own business as a employee benefits consulting specialist, insurance.
Well, now are you working through a specific insurance agency, or do you have your own operation?
I'm owner of an insurance agency. I have 3 partners. We're based out of Grand Rapids and Muskegon. And I run the Muskegon office with one employee here, and we have 7 in Grand Rapids.
And do you have a partnership name, or do you operate under a business name?
Our company is known as Creative Benefit Systems Incorporated. We've been around for 29 years now. And I joined the firm. I was a client of theirs for 10 years, and I joined the firm about 11 years ago.
So do you find that rewarding work in addition to being a city commissioner?
It's very rewarding. I get to work with a lot of employers all across the state. I travel entirely around the state with clients in Allegan, Ann Arbor, Mount Pleasant, Traverse City, Greenville, Montcalm County, Muskegon, all over.
So you're really seeing another side of what's happening with Michigan's employment sector that people don't often talk about, in terms of Michigan has a lot of employees who've been pretty long-term employees, and in terms of relying on their benefits, it's been something that to be able to count on, hopefully. That's
correct. Employee benefits are very, very challenging. For most employers, it's the second largest expense after payroll. It's an enormous expense for them, and trying to manage that cost can be quite challenging. And with background in human resources and finance, I understand the impact it will have directly on an employer, so I can come in from a different perspective than many people who are representing the products that are out there today and say, this one will work for you and here's why.
Well, could we talk a little bit about workman's compensation and the cost for the employer, as well as how that affects the worker in terms of being able to keep a steady income when they may suffer injury on the job or something related to their work?
Yeah. Workers' compensation insurance is a state mandated benefit for employees that falls more into commercial carriers than the type of thing that I do, but having worked with it as a human resource professional, it's a very, very necessary component of the employment system. For employees who are injured on the job, it reimburses them about 70% of their wages during the period of their disability, so that they'll have some income coming in while they recuperate and try to get back to work.
Well, when we have people on extended unemployment, how much of that burden gets borne by the employer for the workers' compensation and even some of the unemployment benefits?
Workers' compensation is typically a private commercial insurance that the employer is required to pay for, and so they buy that privately. Unemployment insurance, on the other hand, is a payroll tax, and depending on the experience of the company, typically the expense to the employer is between 1% and 10% of payroll based on experience.
How are we adjusting? I know that talking to Cindy Larson, we've talked about how the Lakeshore area has been really quite a center of business activity as of late. We've had a woman from Art Cats, and we featured a few businesses in the area as well. And it's a great place to go and visit and go to the beach and you get the Harbortown area. So what part of the ward do you live in?
I live in Glenside. If you're familiar with McGrath Park, I live across the street from McGrath Park. Beautiful old neighborhood, a lot of wonderful neighbors. They take great pride in their community and in their yards and in the park, and they are very, very protective of the park. And the McGrath Park is a wonderful area. It has disc golf in it, and people play that 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. Middle of the night, a blizzard in February, they'll be out there playing, and it's a wonderful, wonderful thing to see the park used that much.
Well, I've definitely gone there and enjoyed it, and it is a great park, big addition to the city. Tell us what you see changing in terms of the context of the neighborhood. Are we seeing population shifts? Are we seeing some of the older community yield to new housing and other issues there?
Most of Lakeside is developed. The Fourth Ward is developed, so there aren't a lot of buildable lots anymore. We see a steady transition of retirees out and young people moving in, but there's still plenty of retirees there. It's a nice part of town to retire to because it's so full of parks and waterfront and the beach and so on, easy to get to. So it's still a very, very popular place that way. Probably the biggest challenges that we face are the economic ones due to the plant closing at Sappi. Now we think they might reopen in the fall. They haven't given us any indication they won't, but they're withholding comment until later in the fall when they have a chance to reevaluate that opportunity. That does reduce some of the commercial traffic flow through Lakeside, but that just makes room for more tourist traffic through Lakeside. So it's there's pluses and minuses to both of them, but the financial impact of losing Sappi is several hundreds of thousands of dollars, if not in excess of $1 million to the local economy.
Well, it also affects our wastewater system as well, doesn't it?
They were 50% utilizers of our wastewater system, so that cost has to be spread over the entire county. The spin-off business, just not manufacturing paper, but the local businesses that they employed for one reason or another, whether it was electricians or pipe cleaners or just trades in general, whatever it was, impacts the local community to the tune of about $250,000 in local income annually. It's just an enormous amount.
Well, and you mentioned that the Fourth Ward has a sizable portion of the actual lakeshore in terms of Muskegon Lake as well as Lake Michigan in the ward. Have you been working with the watershed group to, I know I've participated in some of the cleanup efforts there. Is there more of a focus now?
There's a lot of initiatives going on to preserve and protect and improve the waterfront, especially between the bike path and the lake, to try and return a lot of it as much as we can to green space, clean up any of the litter and contaminants that are down there, and just overall improve the whole shoreline to make it more environmentally friendly. And there's been a series of state and federal grants that have been applied for, a number of them approved, and so we see a lot of work going on down there right now.
Well, and Steve, there's been a significant improvement to the Rudderman Lagoon. Could you talk about the impact of that?
Yes, the area upstream from the lagoon was an old barrel dump and chemical dump for a number of the industries in town 50, 60, 70 years ago, and we didn't know enough about the environment to protect it as well as we do today. Consequently, those contaminants drifted downstream through a series of creek beds into Rudderman Lagoon, and then from there consequently out into Muskegon Lake. And Rudderman Lagoon was particularly contaminated. The EPA had designated it a hot spot, and about 2 years ago came in and put in a system to clean the lagoon where they dammed the water a little bit, raised the level high enough to get barges and cranes in there, and completely removed all of the contaminated muck on the bottom of the lagoon and upstream for almost a mile. Replaced the floor with sand, rocks, and restored it back to its natural environment. And repurified the water. They had a water purification system on site right behind the band shell in the parking lot, and cleaned the water right on site and returned it right back to the lagoon, and then took the contaminated muck that couldn't be cleaned and hauled it off to a appropriate landfill, certified landfill.
So is that becoming another addition in terms of park space that people are able to come and enjoy now?
Yes, we still have a lot of people use it. The DEQ and the EPA haven't lifted the no contact on it completely. So there is still some contaminants in it, but they've removed 75 to 85% of the contaminants that were there. So our hopes are, as water flushes through the system, that it will ultimately become clean enough for contact. And then we still see folks with kayaks and canoes in there, though.
So people are able to do some boating and be in the water there.
Right.
Well, we'll be coming right back to Steve Wisneski, and please stay with us, and we'll be right back.